The summer of that year was marked by pleasant heat and a sun that seemed to caress the skin with its warmth. The gentle breezes balanced the temperature, making the days neither too hot nor too cold, a perfect climate that Sally would never forget. Sally was an 8-year-old girl with curly brown hair and bright green eyes, the embodiment of politeness and honesty. Her parents adored her, proud to have such an obedient and sincere daughter. While she was happily playing with her friends, her mother Marie, with a warm smile and clean hands in her apron, called her inside, announcing that it was time for lunch. Sally, hearing her mother's call, was quick to go to the table. During lunch, Sally's mother, serving peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with the edges cut off, along with carrot and celery sticks, announced Uncle Johnny's arrival, arousing in Sally a reaction of surprise and joy. The little girl, with traces of peanut butter on her lips, excitedly inquired about her uncle's arrival, while her mother, with a smile, confirmed the news. The mention of a possible trip to the carnival and the presence of her friends Sarah and Jenny only added to Sally's excitement for the vacations. Uncle Johnny's arrival was an eagerly awaited event. As he got out of the car, stretching his tired arms, he was warmly welcomed by Sally, who left her playful antics to run to meet him. Uncle Johnny, with warmth and ease, lifted Sally up, greeting her and showing an interest in how she spent her days. Sally excitedly pointed to her friends and suggested they go inside to tell her mother about her arrival. Together, they entered the house, calling for Marie, who came out to meet Johnny with a relieved and welcoming smile. After a brief interaction, Sally went out to play again, heeding her mother's reminder to return before nightfall. As dinner time approached, Sally's father arrived home, happy to see his brother, Johnny. With a handshake and a warm hug, Sally's father greeted Johnny, expressing his joy at seeing him and asking how he was. In response, Johnny, playing with his thumbs, revealed that he and Karen had split up. Although Sally's father expressed his sympathy, Johnny assured him that he was fine with the separation, appreciating the freedom of not having someone constantly questioning his movements. The two brothers shared a laugh before joining the table for dinner. During the meal, compliments were exchanged between the adults. Johnny thanked Marie for the delicious meal, to which she responded with gratitude that he had enjoyed it. Sally herself, unable to contain her satisfaction, also expressed how much she was enjoying the food, provoking smiles and laughter among the adults. As the meal went on, Sally began to show signs of tiredness, yawning and rubbing her eyes. Noticing this, her mother suggested it was time for bed. Sally, agreeing, promptly got up and took her plate to the sink. As her mother prepared to put her to bed, Johnny, Sally's uncle, offered to do it. Gratefully, Sally's mother agreed. Johnny then followed Sally to her room, closing the door behind him and watching as she chose her pajamas. When he asked if she needed any help, Sally nodded in the affirmative. They went through several pajamas, including one with a strawberry print, which Sally refused with a laugh, and another with a unicorn, which was also denied. Finally, they chose a light pink sweater, which excited Sally. As Johnny helped her get ready for bed, Sally assured him that she could dress herself, but Johnny continued to help her, keeping a smile as he did so. While helping Sally get dressed, Johnny kindly offered his assistance, explaining that she might be tired and that a little help would be welcome. He watched Sally nod a few times. After unbuttoning his shirt and carefully removing it from his shoulders, Johnny tickled his belly, causing the girl to giggle. Then he carefully pulled Sally's shorts down and helped her into the light pink sweater, slipping it over her head and adjusting her arms through the sleeves. All done, he announced happily, watching Sally smile and jump on his bed. Just then, Sally's mother entered the room, asking if Sally was ready for bed. Johnny, who was on the other side of the bed, hastened to reply, offering to put Sally up for the night. Marie smiled and nodded in agreement. She approached Sally, kissed her forehead and wished her good night. Sally responded affectionately to her mother. Marie, after gently stroking Sally's forehead with her thumb, picked up the clothes that Johnny had collected and left the room. Johnny smiled at Marie as she left and approached the light switch. After turning off the light, he carefully closed the bedroom door and locked it. Turning slowly towards Sally, he flashed her a crooked smile. Over the next few days, Marie began to notice a change in Sally's behavior. The girl, who had always been smiling and full of life, now seemed more withdrawn and less cheerful. Worried, Marie decided to talk to Sally before she went out to play with her friends. Taking Sally's hand, Marie led her to a more secluded corner and asked, kneeling down so that she was at her daughter's height, if she was feeling well. Sally, with her arms crossed and a confused look on her face, slowly began to cry. Marie, surprised and confused by her daughter's reaction, asked what was going on. Between sobs, Sally revealed that she was upset about something that had happened, something she didn't want to do. In a broken voice, she said that she hadn't wanted to take part in a game, explaining that someone had touched her and made her touch back. Marie immediately frowned, worried, and started stroking the child's hair, trying to comfort and calm her. Marie, trying to reassure Sally, assured her that everything was fine now and that she was safe. She tried to convince her daughter that what she had experienced was just a frightening nightmare, not reality. Watching Sally look at her, still crying and panting, Marie smiled reassuringly, trying to convey security in maternal love. With her mother's reassurance, Sally felt a little better. Marie smiled and gave her a kiss on the forehead, suggesting that she wash her face before going back to play with her friends. Sally, giving a shy smile, ran to the bathroom to clean herself up. Later, when Johnny and Frank, Sally's father, returned from work, Frank was greeted with a nod from Sally. He responded with a smile and a wave, heading for the house. Johnny, watching Sally, waved to her too, noticing that the girl's smile was less cheerful than usual. Inside the house, Johnny overheard Frank and Marie talking about Sally's nightmare. Frank, worried, asked who he was in his daughter's nightmare. Marie explained that she didn't know, but believed it was just a nightmare, although she was worried about the change in Sally's behavior. Johnny, overhearing the conversation, felt a surge of anger, but soon pulled himself together, pretending to have just arrived and asking if he was interrupting anything. Marie asked Johnny to go to the store to buy some items. Before leaving, Johnny suggested that Sally accompany him. Marie agreed, and Johnny left the house, calling Sally to go with him. Sally hesitantly left her dolls with Jenny and Sarah, saying she would be right back, and followed Johnny to his car. As they got into the car, she asked if her mother really wanted Johnny to go to the store, to which he said yes. Johnny then started the car and left the garage, with Sally by his side. In the car, Johnny tried to reassure Sally, saying that his mother wanted some items from the store and suggesting that they could buy something else for them as well. He smiled at Sally, who apprehensively forced a smile and turned her attention to the scenery passing by the car window. As they approached the store, Sally noticed that Johnny wasn't slowing down to enter the parking lot. Confused, she caught his eye. "Uncle Johnny, the store is on the other side," said Sally, pointing in the direction of the Whole Foods store. Johnny, however, didn't reply and continued driving, keeping a faint smile on his face. Sally, feeling increasingly anxious, watched through the rear window as the store fell behind, realizing that they weren't going shopping after all. Instead, Johnny drove to a community park parking lot, a place that used to be empty on Sundays. Sally, now clearly nervous and breathing heavily, looked at Johnny, whose expression reflected anger. He turned off the car and, with an intense stare, questioned Sally. "You told your mother what happened, didn't you?" he asked, watching Sally frantically shake her head in denial. "You're not playing the right game, Sally," he said, his voice almost humming ominously. Johnny then approached Sally, pulling her close to him, ignoring her resistance and the girl's tearful pleas. "You said you were going to play the game with me, Sally, you lied to me," he accused, as he dragged Sally out of the car and threw her on the ground. Ignoring Sally's desperate cries, he declared that she needed to be punished for breaking the rules, his voice maintaining a sing-song, sinister tone as he began to unbuckle his belt. Couple find body of 8-year-old Sally Williams in community park, the TV news said a few days later. Johnny came home that day telling everyone that he had been mugged and 2 guys had kidnapped Sally. His act was so convincing that by the time they found Sally's body he wasn't a suspect. The same night that the body was taken for autopsy, Johnny was at Marie and Frank's house consoling the family. It went on late into the night. Just as Johnny was getting ready for bed, a noise in the hallway caught his attention. He wondered if it was Frank and Marie, perhaps worried about what had happened and insomnia. But he heard a faint sound that seemed to be crying, a cry that sounded like that of a child. Disturbed, he got out of bed again, opened the door to his room and followed the sound of crying down the dark corridor. When he reached the end of the corridor, he saw a little girl sitting on the floor in front of the window looking up at the moon, bent over and crying. Johnny shuddered, thinking it was his mind beginning to be troubled by his secret. Who are you? How did you get into this house?" he asked in a cold sweat. The girl's crying suddenly stopped. She moved her trembling hands from her face and looked back, her whole broken body twitching slightly. The girl's face and hands were stained with blood, replacing the tears. A deep blood clot was on her head, with more blood leaking from the wound on her face and soiling her dress. Her bright green eyes seemed to penetrate Johnny's soul. "This is my home," said the child in an almost humming voice. She stood up slowly, turning towards him. The girl's feet were dirty, as if she had run through mud, and her knees and legs were covered in scratches. The end of her dress was torn and tattered, and the name, Sally, was stitched prominently on the front. Sally smiled at Johnny, revealing her blood-stained teeth. "Play with me. Let's continue our game, Uncle Johnny," she said, holding out her bloodied hand. I believe justice was served that night. The screams could be heard throughout the neighborhood. Frank and Marie soon arrived and witnessed parts of Johnny strewn all over the hallway. In one of his decapitated hands was the belt he had used to kill Sally, and in the other the piece of the dress on which his name was sewn, showing everyone the true monster of the story. If this disturbed you in any way, subscribe for more horror stories that will mess your psyche. See you in the next video. Or not.